Hi, this is Ethan Tapper, the Chittenden County Forester, and I'm here just to get you a little bit oriented about the Andrews Community Forest and the work that we have planned there this fall. So here's Andrews. The property boundary is this thick black line that I think looks kind of like a bird or something. This is the highway, this line right here. Route 2 runs just to the south of the property along the southern border. Across from the property is Maplewind Farm here, Richmond Village, just down the road here. And as you can see, it stands sort of on the eastern edge of this big developed fragmented area as you get into sort of western central Chittenden County. The property is surrounded by conserved land. So here we have a conserved piece of forest land that's owned by Maplewind Farm. Here to the north and east, we have a property owned by Prelco, which is a large property, which is conserved to the Forest Legacy easement. And here we have the property owned by the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, which is about a 400-acre property, also conserved, but with an easement with the Richmond Land Trust. When the property was purchased by the town in 2018, it was done with a lot of help from the Vermont Land Trust. And the property is conserved with a conservation easement, which means that it can never be developed, it can never be subdivided, and there's some other restrictions on its use. That easement is co-held by the Vermont Land Trust and the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, and it's monitored by the Land Trust. So when the Land Trust put that easement into place, they took some steps to protect specific features on the property. So here you see outlined in blue, these blue polygons. These are buffers around some of the area's streams. You can see these here. These other colored polygons here, 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 are rare or unusual or sensitive natural communities. So in the case of Andrews, we have dry oak white pine forest, dry oak forest, dry oak hickory hop hornbeam forest, red pine forest. They also, and so those natural communities have specific protections that are afforded them in the easement. Now, they also mapped two vernal pools, here and here. Vernal pools are basically areas that are temporarily inundated with water. They are not accessible by a stream, they're not either upstream or downstream of any active stream channel, which means that they're sort of protected. So like fish and other aquatic organisms have a harder time accessing them. And so they're this very important breeding habitat for amphibians. Around these vernal pools is where amphibians spend most of their lives. And so to protect the function of these vernal pools, which are a rare feature in our landscape, and also to protect these amphibians later in their life cycle, there are two buffers around these vernal pools. So this first buffer, which you can see in orange, looks like sort of the yolk of this egg. That is a 100-foot buffer in which basically no management at all will occur. So that's the area that's protecting the vernal pool itself immediately adjacent to there. This light blue, the white of the egg that surrounds that orange yolk, is an additional 400-foot buffer. So this is in recognition that this is the area where amphibians spend most of their life. So in the spring, they leave the vernal pool after breeding, and then they're going to spend most of their life in this area 500 feet from the vernal pool. There is some management that can happen in that 400-foot zone around there, but it needs to be management that is specifically protecting amphibian habitat. So that means minimizing soil disturbance, not creating ruts, leaving the canopy of the forest pretty intact, and leaving lots of dead wood on the forest floor. So in addition to those permanently protected features in the conservation easement for Andrews, we also had an amazing project done by Grace Glynn and Meredith Naughton and Eric Hagan, who were in the field naturalist graduate program at UVM. And they were able to expand VLT's mapping and add in some other features of interest. So you can see that these other polygons, which are, some of them are the same, some are also different or expanding on those polygons that are protected in the easement, rare natural communities. they have some additional features as well. And so what we did basically when we formed what is called, we call this the forest stand map for the property, we took all of that information into account in trying to make a forest management plan and a map that really protects sensitive and unusual features, and I think is sort of an innovative approach to how we manage this property. So there's a lot of polygons here, and you can download this map just by going to the Richmond Town Forest Committee page of the Richmond Town website. And so what you see here is a map, a very colorful map with lots of different polygons. So basically, we took all of the protected areas, protected in the conservation easement, we expanded them to also include all of the areas detailed by the field naturalist students, and created a bunch of sort of these areas that are specially protected. You'll see that here's that vernal pool, the purple, the 100-foot protection zone, and then this green stuff is showing that additional 400-foot protected area. We also expanded these natural communities that we're interested in to include areas of hemlock forest for deer wintering areas, which are depicted in dark green. You can see that here. And I also expanded these areas to include some areas with steep slopes up here. We also divided the forest into these different stands. So you can see this stand 1, this expands this way, stand 2 in the western portion of the property, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so what a stand is basically in the forestry terminology is it's just an area of forest that's similar enough, the species that are there, the management history, the site, all of these different things that we manage it basically as a whole. And so I divided the other areas of forest into those different areas just for management purposes. When we did this division of sort of splitting up what are these rare and important sensitive natural communities, what are these stands, etc., one thing that we did is we took a cue from public lands out in the western United States and also from some local examples like the Heinsberg Town Forest, and divided the forest into 3 zones. We call these management intensity zones. It's also called the triad approach. And so basically the idea is that forests that are managed in different ways and forests that are unmanaged have different values to the landscape. So different forest types, different ages, different what we call disturbance regimes provide for wildlife, for different species of wildlife in different ways. And we wanted to provide all of those things within the boundaries of the Andrews Community Forest. Each zone is about 1/3 of the area, and you'll see that the reserve zone, the zone that we're not managing at all, is depicted here in green, and it consists of those conservation easement protected features, those other features that were identified by the field naturalist students. It also includes this western portion of the property was harvested very aggressively in about 2011 through 2013. There are some areas within that harvest area that were unharvested, and so we're going to retain those as a reserve basically just because it's the only area in this western portion of the property that wasn't managed, and so it's a little bit unique in that respect. So other things, other restrictions that we put in place, you're allowed to make sort of bigger openings in the course of forest management in this western area. You're only allowed to make smaller openings in this eastern area. The logging equipment that's allowed is also different. So in this western area, you can use whole tree logging equipment. So that's larger scale logging equipment that would be appropriate for making larger openings. In this eastern portion, we're not using whole tree harvesting, which means that in general, we're going to be using what's called hand crews. So that's a logger with a cable skidder, a small machine cutting down trees with a chainsaw and leaving the tops and the branches of those trees in the woods, where it can be a real ecological asset. The harvesting that we're doing will be in this eastern portion. So in this sort of lighter intensity management area in stands 3, so here and here, 4 and 6. So this harvest area here is depicted by this sort of semi-transparent purplish color, as again showing stands 3 here and here, 4 and 6, and also showing some of those ecological features. So here we have that area of hemlock forest that's protected in part of the reserve zone. We also have a little bit of that up here. This vernal pool with a 100-foot buffer, and this 400-foot special management area around that. And then this riparian area, which is protected in the easement, but was also expanded with some information from the field naturalists about wetlands and other significant natural communities around it. These red dotted lines are existing forest management roads, so trails that logging equipment will travel on. We're not going to use all of them because some of them are not always appropriate to use, and there's sort of new side trails that are going to be better for our purposes and cause less disturbance. But we will be using some portions of these historic logging roads. These areas have been managed for a long time. We know that this portion of the property in a 1962 aerial photo is largely forested. It probably was deforested in the 1800s, like most of Vermont, but was allowed to revert back to forest maybe in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It has since been logged by many people. It was most recently logged in the 1990s through 2000s by local Richmond Huntington logger Mark Moultrup, who did an excellent job. And the reason that we have such healthy trees and so many options as far as managing the forest is because Mark did such a good job. The prescription that we're going to be using is what's called single tree and group selection. And so this is a system within what we call uneven age management. So basically, traditionally, foresters have been using what's called even age management to manage our forests. So this is based on efficient production of timber and maybe a human sense of aesthetics. So the fact that we want to grow trees quickly and efficiently for timber and for value, and it's, for whatever reason, looks really neat and tidy when we do that in an even age context. So when all the trees are about the same size, they're evenly spaced, etc. Unfortunately, that's not how forests actually grow. And so increasingly people are using different approaches to manage forests, how they manage themselves. So these include uneven age approaches where we're managing for multiple age classes of trees of different sizes and shapes and different canopy positions, different heights, because this is how old growth forests work and how forests manage themselves. In addition to that, there's an emergent science of managing forests specifically for old growth attributes, which we'll also be doing. This means that in addition to managing forests which are diverse and have many different ages and sizes and species of trees, we're also going to be allowing big old trees to remain in the forest as what we call legacies. These are trees that we're not managing for timber. They will just exist there and provide wildlife benefits, ecological benefit, eventually die and fall on the forest floor and provide dead wood benefits, which are also very ecologically important. Leaving lots of dead wood on the forest floor is also a really important part of managing for old growth attributes. Old growth forests have tons and tons and tons of dead wood. Also, dead standing trees provide a lot of wildlife benefit. And protecting our soils as much as we can is also really, really important.